the cards that are lower, that charge lower rates, don't take the higher risk people. So if they're charging lower rates, they're not going to be able to give credit to the people who are higher risk.
Good evening, I'm John Calloway, and welcome to Chicago Tonight. It started out seemingly innocently enough as a bit of presidential jawboning and a dash of political opportunism. President Bush's non-economic advisor suggested that he throw in a sentence or two at a Republican fundraiser about how nice it would be if credit card interest rates could come down. Well, by the time the U.S. Senate finished taking the president up on his suggestion, the U.S. markets dropped sharply and a huge debate was ignited over credit card interest rates and the Bush administration's alleged lack of a coherent economic policy. Tonight on this program, we will examine the great credit card cap caper and its impact on the economy. Beginning with this report from Chicago Tonight correspondent Chitra Raghavan, who talked with some consumers today who agree with those who think that credit card rates are too high.
I'm in big trouble with Visa right now, and I'm paying over 21% interest, and when you can only earn 4 or 5% on your savings, it's hard to get ahead.
I think that they are charging exorbitant prices for finance charges, and it's way above the market rate at this point, and I think they're just taking advantage of consumers.
In a move that must have cheered many consumers, last Wednesday, President Bush urged banks to lower credit card interest rates as a way to help jumpstart the economy.
I'd frankly like to see the credit card rates down. I believe that would help stimulate the consumer.
The next day, the Senate went a step further, quickly passing legislation which included capping credit card interest rates at 14%. The idea also had some support in the House.
This is legalized loan sharking. It is putting the plastic pistol to the head of credit card customers and extorting money.
But last Friday's 120-point drop in the stock market, which some analysts blamed in part on the proposed credit card cap, cooled support for the measure in the House.
I think the unexpected consequences of the president's statement and the very quick action in the Senate indicates that the House should be extremely careful before it moves very quickly toward any legislation that would put an absolute cap on credit card rates.
The measure is not expected to make it out of the House. Marie Stevens is a consumer credit counselor at United Charities. She says that for the most part, a cap on credit card rates would be of little consequence to consumers.
I think it's got pros and cons to it. It would be of some help to people trying to pay off bills, in that it would be somewhat of a smaller interest charge each month, although it wouldn't be a huge difference to most people. And it also would mean that there are a lot of people who would probably not be able to get credit or might even lose credit because of the lower rates.
John Wasik of Chicago-based Consumers Digest magazine says that lower rates are already available if consumers would just look for them.
Choices have existed for at least a decade in terms of finding a lower rate on a card. In fact, you can get a rate right now that's as low as 9%. In fact, in the state of Arkansas, which issues cards nationally, you can get a rate that's capped, that's kind of indexed to the federal discount rate. So the options have always existed.
Bank Rate Monitor, a Florida-based publication which watches credit card rates, shows a huge disparity in the credit card business. For example, a consumer could pay 20% or more in interest on some credit cards. The national average credit card rate is 18.77%. But a consumer who shops around could actually find cards available nationally charging less than half the top rate. One problem is that many consumers don't know that lower rate cards are available, and some just don't seem to care. Have you ever considered shopping around for a better?
Oh yeah, but I just don't do it.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't. I don't know.
Do you use credit cards?
Yes.
What do you pay in terms of interest?
Anywhere from 18 to 21, and it hurts.
Have you considered looking around and shopping for a better interest rate?
I've considered it, but it never really seems worth the hassle.
Have you considered shopping around for a better credit card with better interest rates?
Yeah, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
With the clients that I see, an awful lot of them may know what the annual percentage rate is, but they really don't pay any attention to what the actual monthly charge is. And the only part they look at on their bills is, how much do I have to pay this month?
If consumers don't want to spend time shopping around for lower interest rates and capping interest rates is not advisable, then what's the answer? Well, consumer credit counselors would tell you that there is one sensible option, although it's not what President Bush has in mind. The answer, they say, is to consolidate your debts and stop using those magic words. Charge it. For Chicago Tonight, I'm Chitra Raghavan.
And now joining us to discuss the credit card cap caper and the national and international economies are David Hale, who was first vice president and chief economist of Kemper Financial Services; Robert Eisner, professor of economics at Northwestern University and past president of the American Economic Association; Robert Diederich, executive vice president and chief economist of the Northern Trust Company; and John Skorberg, who is chief economist and director of government affairs for the Chicago Association of Commerce and Industry. And Mr. Skorberg, let me begin by asking you to take us through it one more time. What do you say to the consumer who says, well, I'm going to be able to find a mortgage now at a little more than 8%, and I can buy me a car loan for about 11%, and my credit cards are costing me 18 or 20. What's the problem?
I think the real key is what we saw in the tape there is availability. That consumers are comfortable with the plastic that they have in their pockets right now. They're comfortable with the payments they have to make on it, and they just want to have that amount available to them when they want to use it.
But what do you say to those persons who told Chitra Raghavan, well, I know I could get a better rate. I could call you. It's not the biggest thing on earth to call up Arkansas and get a 9.5% rate, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Why are we such efficient consumers of so many other things, but we're just kind of sitting there like a dummy on credit cards? Do you know anything about the psychology of that?
I think part of it is that they have made some choices already. One of the choices they've made, they may have a card with no fee. They may have a card with a 30-day grace period on it, so they might be using it partially as a debit card, so that it's just sort of a cash advance they're using, and if they pay it every month, which, if I remember the figures from a couple of years ago, about 50% of the people who are using credit cards would do that, really wasn't costing them anything.
David Hale, I'd like to go to you and ask you, what would you say to those who say that George Bush's jawboning that we saw on this issue, Senator D'Amato's credit card cap legislation, and the overwhelming immediate approval by the Senate with no public hearings and 30 minutes of debate of Senator D'Amato's cap legislation demonstrates that politicians in Washington don't have a clue about economics?
I'd say two things about it. First, I think the White House is becoming progressively more hysterical about the economy and was looking for some low-cost gimmicks to try and persuade the public that it's focused on the economy and cares, and a populist throwaway attack on the credit card companies was an easy way to do that, a bit like the attacks on the oil companies 10 and 15 years ago. In the case of the Congress, the Senate did pass that knowing that it would have to go to the House. There would at some point be hearings, and again it was a cheap, easy way to persuade people that they cared or were going to take an action to try and lower interest rates. But I don't think anybody seriously believed this would happen very quickly, and the reaction of the markets, I think, made it very clear it could not happen. Credit card pricing is like insurance pricing. It's actuarial assumptions, and if you tamper with the pricing, you destroy the whole framework for how the business operates.